Welcome to Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed. Get ready to dive into the world of nonprofits, where the nerdy passion and unstoppable dedication of those making a real impact is celebrated. Together with your host, Jarrett Ransom, the inspiring stories and game-changing strategies of nonprofit leaders will be explored. Join us to unravel the mysteries of successful fundraising, uncover the secrets to effective advocacy, and nerd out over innovative approaches to solving social challenges. Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed is your go-to podcast for no-nonsense discussions with real-life superheroes of the nonprofit sector. Get ready to unleash your inner nerdiness and discover or rediscover how to change the world together. Now let's dive in and embrace the power of our nerdy side.
Hey there. Welcome back, friends. Whether you listen to all 10 episodes or a few sound bites here and there, I want to say thank you for joining me on Season 3's journey. As I mentioned in the first episode this season, it really wasn't that long ago that these conversations were a mere dream of mine. Truly, they started out of a need, a craving really, that I was having, and the more conversations I found myself having with my clients, during my executive coaching sessions, and with other professionals, that's when I began noticing that these conversations were being craved and desired by others as well. So I began by designing a platform to share about navigating the constant demands that we all face. The reality is, we all face demands between our work commitments as well as our personal commitments. So fast forward to today, and I am realizing that these constant demands may never stop. But I'm also realizing that the secret to finding peace is up to us and how we choose to respond to them that makes our days, our weeks, our months, and even our years what they become. They can be filled with ease and grace, or they can be filled with chaos and stress. And they can also be filled with a mixture of the two. The last several years have left me needing to focus on my personal wellness. It has led me to up my self-care game and commitment to finding a better blend to how I work and live to sustain the energy and wellness that I need to be of service to others without it negatively impacting me in the process. Today, I am filled with immense gratitude as I wrap up Season 3 of Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed. And before we wrap up this season, you're going to hear the second part of my conversation where Tim continues to help me see myself in my truest form and helps me find the patterns in my own life that are my go-to actions when it comes to navigating challenges as well as uncertainties.
I'm really curious about your personality type. Do you mind if I ask? So,
You
I don't know whether you're like if you are an otter tiger person or whether you're a disc profile person or Enneagram. What of those have you done, and what have the results been?
I've done a lot of them, right? Like, I think I've got FOMO on personality test. I just want to know all the things. Okay, I don't know all of the names, but there's one that's a color one, and it's like blue, gold, green, and orange. And I'm an orange, which is like adrenaline junkie, risk taker, extrovert, likes to be around and with people. So that's the color analysis. I think I'm an ENFJ or one, I forget the final two, but EN, right? So definitely extrovert. I am an extreme extrovert. Although since 2020, I have been navigating more towards myself and reflection and introvert. Just like this weekend, it's a 3-day weekend and I am doing nothing out of the house, no commitments. Like, I am me, my dog, and Netflix. Like, that is what we're doing this weekend. So I'm doing a little bit more of that introvert lifestyle. And then I did another personality test recently. And again, Predictive Index, I think was the name. And I was a maverick, which maverick in that standpoint meant like leader, strategic thinker, driver, someone that gets done, like really just plow through. So yeah, you name the personality test, I've probably done it because I am so curious to know more about myself.
Yeah, and I am an ENFP as well, which is what I'm guessing you
Okay.
are. Although the P and the J on that, I feel like that might be. I feel like you're an ENF, and then P or J would be interesting.
Okay.
Um, and then, do you mind if I ask just a couple other questions on that? So,
Yeah.
if someone asks you a question, and you could either answer with a story or you could answer with a number. Like they ask you a question about a dollar amount, and you could either give a story or you could say the dollar amount.
Mhm.
Which one do you more often do?
Probably story.
Okay.
I'm not, I, I mean, I do fundraising, so I know numbers and I can do numbers, but that's not what I gravitate towards, right? Like
Yeah.
numbers sometimes intimidate me. I always say like even my calculator is wrong sometimes. So I would venture to guess that I operate with a story first.
I have a different interpretation of that besides just the mistrust of calculators, which we should talk about sometime because that's really interesting
Is
to me.
yours broken too?
Well, no, it's not. I think I'm broken when I read it. Like I'm the one that
Oh,
doesn't understand what it means, right? So,
sure. Yeah.
but whatever. What I really want to get at there though is that given a choice to inform or inspire, my
Mhm.
guess is that you'll choose to inspire. And one is not better than the other,
Yeah.
but that forms a really large shift. That comes out of the disc profile,
Sure.
and that forms a really big shift in your orientation around communication, which it makes sense that you would be a maverick then, right?
Oh,
Because
that's interesting.
you
Yeah.
can't just inform people into following you. You have
No.
to inspire. And I'm just going to connect it to one other thing. The roots of the word inspire come from the same roots as wind or breathe. So when you start talking about going to breath,
Yeah.
that I don't think is minor. I think that is very connected to who you are and the work that you do, and that breathing is definitely a part of that. And when you do a cold plunge, guess what it takes away? Your breath.
Breath.
So
Oh my gosh. I
I feel
remember
like that's
that
really
vividly.
interesting. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember that vividly because I plunged twice and both times I was just like it totally took my breath away. That's fascinating. Okay, well you have now hit me in my core, gave me chills head to toes like okay, yeah, that resonates.
Yeah. Um, so the next thing I want to ask about, if it's okay, is there are varying degrees of safety for us, right? So I think one of the reasons that we connected is because I'm fairly open about my mental health issues on LinkedIn, and one of the reasons for that is that it's a way for me to normalize people, even CEOs, having mental health issues, right? And part of that for me is just the recognition that it's not equally safe for everybody to own or to be that way. It's more safe for me given my privilege. As you navigate being a CEO woman in a world that is not always fair, how do you navigate what you choose to share personally and what you feel like could be used against you out in your professional life?
That is such a deep question and I think it's a constant navigation, right? Like I had mentioned earlier about the people that I trust and share with intimate vulnerable details over my 40 plus years. I'm 46 by the way, like I'm not afraid of it, but I'm 46. Um I've certainly had close friendships come and go. And what I realized for me is that close knit friendship group usually changes about every 3 to 5 years. It's like if I were a snake, I am shedding the skin every 3 to 5 years and going to the next version, right? And what I have found for me in that place is typically been I am outgrowing my current situation and up leveling whatever that might be, right? And so those people that I've surrounded myself with, perhaps I met them in a business program or who knows, right? Like we're just doing our journey and for that moment for those years they were in sync and then something changes just enough of the algorithm of the formula that we kind of all start to, to change just enough to kind of move on. So that is something I've noticed for me, but I've been burned, right? Like I've totally been burned. So there are times when I think, oh, I probably overshared. I even joke in my marriage, like my husband is not a big communicator. I am an over communicator. So I am an open book. And as you say, questions like, if it's okay that I ask this question, it's the same answer I've given my mom since I was a little girl. You can ask me any question you want, but be ready for the answer, right? Like that's the thing, because I operate my core values, two of them are honesty and transparent, right? And so I will tell you the truth and I will share my truth, knowing that it might not be popular opinion, right? But that is, again, I think for me, part of that verbal processing.
I think that it's interesting that your answer here is that you accept the risk because it just comes with who you are,
Yeah.
right? And I think that
Well,
that's
back to high risk, high reward, right? It's like,
yes, right. Yep.
I want to play all out. And I've
Yeah.
done some intense leadership programs. One that has made me a samurai, right? Like there's a series of leadership programs. It's called You and Improved, but You and I, the leader, the communicator, the warrior, the samurai. And so the samurai, you get a name, a samurai name. And mine is Freedom Dove. So it's all about like completely like being free, radical expression of self, and radical, what it means to me is also radical exception or exception, like accepting people for who they are, for their self.
Yeah.
And then the dove, the representation for me is peace, calm, unity, right? So like really having this radical expression of freedom. So leadership has been a big one, but yes, all out. Like I'm into everything 100%. Because if I'm not in it at all.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We share a lot of
Yeah.
identity markers here. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Like my name like has TMI in it, right? So like absolutely get that.
Yeah.
I think that's
I love that.
yeah, I think that's interesting. You talk about shedding every couple of years, and not everybody is equally adaptable. Not everybody wants to adapt. Like some people really want to find stability and maintain it. No problem with that. You're not that person.
Yeah.
How do you know if it's how do you know if you're changing your skin versus just like a minor thing? Like how do you know if it's a large identity shift, or how do you know if it's like just a tweak, right? Does that make
I
sense?
Yeah, for me it does. I feel it in my gut, right? Like I feel it in my body. And I'm on a change now. I don't know exactly what it is, and I'm processing it with my coach. I'm processing it with you and even this moment. But like I am in some kind of a transformation now where I am reassessing um where I am in my career, right? And that means all the things to me, Tim. That means my financial place in my career, my client load in my career, the amount, like my travel, my speaking, all of that. Like I am so freaking proud of where I am. 16 years of commitment, to community and building community. And I'm tired. I am really
Yeah.
tired. Which is where this transition comes from. As I shared about going out in the woods and doing that cold plunge, I'm referring to this as my feral era. And I've heard someone else say like, yeah, 40s and feral. And I'm like, that's me. Like, I feel so feral in the sense of I'm not sure what's next. I'm not sure what cords I need to cut from my past. I'm not sure where my journey and path is going next. But I'm feeling very curious, very exploratory. And I mean, this is the first that I've spoken it more publicly. I don't know what that means for me and my business. I don't know what that means for nonprofit nerd, right? Like, I don't know what that means, but I do know that I am looking inward intuitively. What brings me joy? What is possible for me in the future? And it is no coincidence that I've seen this modeled in my business coach, right? Going from her highest point of an attorney to totally switching up, who she is and what she's doing and being successful at it, right? It's not because like I want to do this and it means I'm going to settle for less. I'm not settling for less. Like I don't know what's next. So I feel it in my gut and I'm in it now.
And these are moves you don't have to make. They're
No,
just like, it's time.
it's
And there's
time.
just something inside. I
They're nudges. I get these
yeah.
little nudge. Like it's almost like, are you comfortable? Are you happy? Are you
Mhm.
doing all that you can do? Is there
Yeah.
more? What else do you really want to do?
But
If
you're
you're
always asking that. I would guess that
always,
there's not a day that you have not asked yourself that question. And then recently the trend of days was like, I'm not sure. Like in the number of those I'm not sure days are adding up until you're like, okay, this is not a coincidence, right? Is it something like that?
yeah. Are you in my brain? I think you're in my brain. That is
My
just about it. Like it's enough consecutive days that I'm like, wait a
yeah.
minute. Now takes me back to data points, right? So wait a minute. I've answered this question similarly for the last 5 days. What is going on?
And I
So
think that there's I guess one of the reasons I want to pull that out is that this is the first time you started with you when I've asked something. You didn't start with, I processed it with so and so. I went to a coach.
mhm.
I went to my, like, I love the spreadsheet, by the way, going back to 2017. Amazing.
Yeah,
You didn't go there. You didn't even go to your husband.
right.
You feel it. And it's not even you think it. It is your gut is telling you something is up.
Yeah.
And so I just think that is at the end of the day, one of the things I look for all the time is the intersection of humans and information and insight. So I don't like, here's the secret with me. Information's like water, right? It's the thing that matters. And technology is like a hose. And who cares about the brand of the hose? Like, who cares? What the purpose of it is to move water from one place to another. And if it's leaking, time to get a new one. Or if it's too short, time to get a new one or another one, right? But the core idea there is the water. And for humans, what I'm always looking for is, how do humans do that humaning part of us that tells us what information to go look at to know what our next insight and decision is going to be. And this is one of the best, most open examples of that, because you go to a lot of different sources, but you really care about the water, right? And I just think that that's really, I think that's interesting.
Thank you. Yeah. That is interesting. All of this has given me a lot of self-reflection, and I'm so grateful.
All right. Well, what do you do? Let's talk about this. What do you do for fun then?
Besides cold plunging in my birthday suit, like
Is that fun? I'm sorry. That does not sound fun to me.
it was.
Driving a Forerunner, that sounds fun. Driving off-road sounds great if you did that.
Yeah.
Cold plunging, I'm not sure. I'm just not sure.
It was fun. It was fun for me because one, it was a little bit of that adrenaline, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? It's just us. Like, is this safe? I do love to travel, right? Like travel for me is a lot of fun, and it doesn't have to be crazy, elaborate. Although I did have that trip this summer. My family, the four of us, went to Europe, and we had a 2-week trip in Europe, and we went paragliding. And I mean, it was, have you seen that movie, like Yes Day, I think is the name of it? it was like a 2-week yes day. So everything that came up, do you want gelato? Yes. Do you want to go parasailing? Yes. Do you want to, I don't know, like take this boat on, in Italy? Yes. Like, what do you want to do? Yes, let's do that. That was a lot of fun. And I love exploring just what's in my backyard, right? Like, gardening is something that will be in our backyard again soon. I live in Phoenix for the majority of the year. And for anyone that knows anything about, weather, it is hotter than hot here right now. But in the fall, which is coming up, my husband and I plant a nice vegetable garden. So that's fun for me. It's also my urban connection to earth, right? As opposed to going up north and being in a creek. But that's a lot of fun for me, as well as, mountain biking is something that my husband and I do. That's fun. It's also very humbling. It's not always fun. It's sometimes very challenging. But it is fun to see my progress. That is good. And then the other thing I can't even believe that I would think was fun is powerlifting. Like, I love picking up heavy shit at the gym and putting it down and repeating it 10 more times.
And I feel like you really like challenge and don't mind discomfort. Not
Oh,
everybody's built that way.
yeah,
So
you're right.
that's interesting,
I
right?
think that's the resilience fiber in me, right?
Mhm.
It's like, what can I prove to myself that I'm okay and that I'm capable? But as I say that, I don't know why I need to prove this to myself.
I mean, haven't you already proved it to yourself too? Like, you proved it to
You would
me,
think,
right? Yeah.
but I guess I'm not done.
I
Or
don't think it's proving it. I think you're curious. I think it's curiosity. I think
maybe
you're
it's,
curious how, like, can I do it today? Will I do
can I do
more?
it today? Can I do it more? Can I push my limits? Right? Yeah, I think that is probably more accurate.
Yeah. Okay. That's really, I think that's interesting. What advice would you give to yourself if you could go back to when you were 23 years old? I mean, I don't know what you were doing at 23, but what advice would you give to yourself based on what you know now?
Oh, my advice would be do the thing. Whatever the thing is, do it. If you want to be nomadic, do the thing, right? If you want to go live abroad, go do it. I have a girlfriend, she's about to take a semester at sea, like as a chaperone. So she's pushing her 50s, so a little bit older than me, but fantastic, right? And she has this opportunity to live on a sailboat, or on a cruise ship rather. These are the things I think, regardless of age, that we should be doing. So whether you're 23, whether you're close to 50, whether you're my age at 46, like, do the thing. And maybe the thing is talking to you through your gut, through your intuition, those questions that I asked myself. um yeah, it's not very polished as my answer, but my answer is
Do the thing is great. Like,
do
it's
the thing.
simple. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever it
Do the
is,
thing.
do it.
Yeah. I feel like in your 40s, because I'm at the end of my 40s.
Yeah,
Um, and in my 40s, I feel like that is often what I look at younger people and say. And don't I think the other thing is, people don't realize that they're in the moments where they can do the most, create the most change for themselves, and that their regrets will often be what they didn't say yes to rather than what they
right,
like said no to or whatever, right?
right. Yeah,
So yeah, I think
do
that's
the
helpful.
thing,
Okay.
do
The
the
other
thing.
question, the other advice question I have is to fundraisers. So, um, what, given the current climate, given AI's eruption into the world, given, the generosity crisis, all of that, personal advice to fundraisers, not necessarily about fundraising, it could be, but it's more just as a person, what would you recommend fundraisers think about and focus on?
That is a really good question. So my answer is consistency. And the reason that's my answer is I've seen it deliver every single time. right, is to stay consistent. And so through presidential campaigns, through economic downturns, through social crisis, stay the course and be consistent. It doesn't necessarily mean that your ROI has to grow, but the activities you're doing, right? Like staying in touch with your supporters and your stakeholders, checking in with your team. I mean, I remember one of the things in March of 2020, which, yes, we're still talking about this, right? So many of us simply picked up the phone, called someone and said, "How are you?" Right? Like just from a human level, how are you? Not about, are you still going to make that gift? Right? So like consistency to me will outplay any strategic plan that you have, outplay any best practice trend that's going on any social platform. Like consistency, consistency, consistency. That is what I would share.
I think that's great advice. And it makes me hopeless because that is my fatal flaw. Like being consistent is the thing that it turns out that's a skill. I don't have it the way a lot of other people do, but I also feel like it doesn't change the reality that that is such an important trait, and especially for fundraisers. So
It's
I love that.
a super important trait, and I would challenge you, Tim. It maybe is not a skill, but a muscle. And just like any muscle, you can develop it and grow it and build it, right? So working on it from that perspective, that consistency, like what can I do today to build on yesterday? What can I do tomorrow to build on the previous day? That kind of thing. And so what I find many of us fail at with our plans, our best laid plans, is we gave up too quickly, right?
Mm.
Or we
Yeah.
changed it too much and we weren't consistent. So for me, even in 16 years of business, I'm noticing consistency is the number one thing that drives success.
I think that's a scary and good word. That it's a muscle, not a skill. If it's a
Yeah.
muscle, then I can do something about it. And so
Yeah.
like that does, I appreciate the challenge on
Got to
that.
grow it, but you can do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Great. All right. Where can listeners find out more about you?
Yeah.
What part, there's a lot of things that you're doing right now. What would you say this is the place to watch what I'm doing, because this is where you're going to find out what's next with me, which it sounds like who knows what's next, which is kind of exciting.
Who knows what's next? Well, first of all, if you're listening to this, thank you. You've already found me here at my podcast, right? Where the tables are turned and Tim is interviewing me. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. So that is probably the top platform you can find me. And then if you're curious about any of my, personal endeavors, I do have 2 accounts on Instagram. One is my nonprofit_nerd, which is much more business related, but with that personal blend. And then if you do want to like just totally creep my personal side, my personal Instagram is one mom, one son, and that's the number 1. So one mom, one son. And that is where I share my personal life, through the eyes of the 2 of us, really. So any and all of those platforms. And again, thank you for listening to these conversations. I hope they're bringing a little bit of peace, a little bit of hope, right? So
Absolutely. I feel like thank you for being so open. It is really true. Ask a question and be prepared for the answer. And I really appreciate that. Jarrett, you are such an inspiring person to many of us in the ecosystem. Thanks for the years that you've been doing this. And thanks for letting me play host today and interview you.
oh, this was a blast. Thank you so much. Again, like when you suggested this, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, why not? But I love that. And I'm always up for something new and appreciate the invitation. So thank you, Tim. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, friends, that's a wrap on my 2-part conversation, and I hope that you were able to glean something from my journey to help you continue on yours. And I mean it. Do the thing. Do the thing that makes you happy, the thing that makes you healthy, and do the thing that makes you whole. And over the last 10 weeks, you have heard about personal victories, professional challenges, and learned from incredible individuals who are making a difference every day about how they navigate their own work-life blend. A big thank you to all of this season's guests that were willing to have candid conversations with me that tackle the real challenges of managing households, schedules, deadlines, passions, and self-care. I've had the privilege of connecting with amazing individuals across our sector and bring their stories to you. I hope you were able to find commonalities in their stories and their experiences. Please join me in saying thank you to Zach Brown with Nonprofits HQ, Tim Lockie at Human Stack, Sky Mercer with Sky HR Consulting, Kirk Schmidt, a very seasoned nonprofit professional working out of Canada, Faith Martin with Fundraising Academy at National University, Jackie McLaughlin with Chazen & Company, Mandy Pierce with Funding for Good, and you also heard from me and my personal journey as Tim Lockie turned the tables for the final 2 episodes of the season on me. I want to express my deepest gratitude to our sponsors this season. Thank you so very much to Fundraising Academy at National University, Nonprofits HQ, and Chazen & Company, and to all of you for keeping these conversations going in your daily lives. Together, we can bring awareness and help to normalize what was previously taboo to talk about in professional settings. And of course, thank you again to each of you. You are all welcome here. And these conversations are dedicated to you to help us all maintain exceptional service to our communities without neglecting our own well-being.